asked a question on Spiritual Seekers Question and Answer. Two questions are there before us. One is, what do we define as leadership in the context of Vedanta? And I'm going to interpret that question as meaning those who spread the message of Vedanta and those who take the message on board as well. Let's take the last one first. All of us have to be leaders in this sense. Well, you have two options. You're a leader or a follower. And most people would want to be followers. Most of us are followers. But it's the followers that exemplify the principles of what they're following that then automatically become leaders. That is not to say that they deliberately, consciously lead other people, but naturally, as Jesus put it, you cannot hide your light under a bushel or a bed. It's there to shine and everybody will see it. If they have eyes to see it. And what that means is that there has to be a corresponding movement from those people who wish to be inspired. Let us take some of the wonderful great saints, and let us take even Holy Mother Sharda herself. There was nothing externally ordinary that we know about that inspired people to elevate her, to see her as a divine mother of the universe. Because, and in fact, when she was visiting South India, she was bypassed completely. And so there was a more striking devotee, Golapma, who was mistaken. And so she was assumed to be a leader and to exhibit spiritual leadership. And the Holy Mother was so humble. But when she chose, of course, she exhibited not only her leadership, because she basically led the whole movement after Ramakrishna, but also showed many, many different sides of her that we would never have suspected. But then there's the more obvious term of leadership. And the obvious example in the Vedantic context, more accurately the Neo-Vedantic context, is Swami Vivekananda. And he was a born leader. That's very clear from his biography. But he had all the characteristics of leadership. What are those? I often say that a leader is somebody who people will follow to the ends of the earth. Follow personally to the ends of the earth. And that would apply in business, I suppose, management and so on. Many problems are caused by this lack of leadership. Whatever you may think about Napoleon and his morality or whatever it is, or what was said about him or against him, he was something of a military genius. And the key to his military genius was not just the planning side of it, anticipating another person's move. In other words, the military strategic side of things. But he was affectionately called the Little Corporal, and he managed to be one of the men, one of the common soldiers, and he managed to inspire them so that the French army followed him personally. With no doubt the French cause in mind, but it was his personality that drove things. So how does Swami Vivekananda get to this position of leadership in a natural way? It's because the divinity within him shone. There's no doubt about it. The way he stands, the way he talks, in such a way that all the wisdom flows. Don't forget, humanly speaking, in 1893 at the Parliament of Religions, he must have been very, very uncomfortable, to say the least. He had never spoken in public before. And he always, made sure that when he was called to the rostrum, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. You can understand why. He has one opportunity to complete what is saw as a divinely appointed mission in the United States of America that would benefit India and in the long run also benefit the West. So a very important mission. And the only way you can blow that mission, really, is to insert your own egocentricity. So what happens if I don't impress people? What happens if my mission fails? See, this I and my has no place with Swami Vivekananda. So it was a question of letting go, in a sense, and allowing divine grace to flow through as speech. And the effect of that was remarkable, as we know. Thousands of people standing in a standing ovation at his simple words, sisters and brothers of America. Just ordinary words in a way, but outstanding in the sense of how it was delivered. So all leadership has this common characteristic. It requires Shakti, divine energy. It requires access to divine energy, which we all have potentially, and then to stand back and allow that to flow through. And so we inspire others mainly through this alignment to divinity, but also we inspire others through the direct practice of whatever we're talking about. Otherwise, it's just hollow and will not have an impact anyway. So in this way, we can recognize something like a guru, for example. So what does it mean? Well, a guru that gives initiation, as an example, it just means that the teacher sees God in someone and says, hey, wake up. That's all. And the truth is that which, of course, abhors any contradiction. And so it carries through. So I'm not sure why the question was asked, but there it is. But the practical side of it really is that we can recognize leadership almost instinctively, and then we have to validate it. And then, of course, we can decide, yes, this is somebody we can follow. And then those followers themselves become spontaneously leaders in the sense that they become a shining light, an exemplary light for others. And of course, the original leaders started off as followers. Vivekananda didn't start off as a spiritual leader. He started off as a follower of his master. And then he became a leader, having been inspired. So may we all be leaders in this sense. And that requires characteristics of decisiveness, strength, the qualities of understanding, good communication. All of those kinds of things are necessary on a practical level. In any field, of course, this is the case. Now, may we have more leaders is my prayer. Now, in terms of then feeling, because one of the things I say in meditation and repetition of the mantra and so on, in spiritual practice in general, is we understand the principles of Vedanta. Principles of Vedanta are very logical. They're high principles. They are very well laid out in the Upanishads. But now, to catch those principles up with the emotions, so for the emotions to close the gap, as it were, intellect and feelings, that's what's required. Particularly if we're operating from a base which is predominantly intellectual. And so, how do we rally the emotions around? We do it by looking at the divine glories everywhere. The divine glories means the whole of the universe, the whole of the observable universe, the whole thing that we see and we understand. All of that is a kind of indication that there's some manifesting entity there exhibiting its clothing, if you will. And to do that, we have to use our poetic imagination. It's a wonderful passage. Purusha evaram vishvam karma tapo brahma paramrutam. Etadyo veda nihitam goyam so avidya grantim vikiratiha sama. The Purusha is all this. It's a wonderful statement coming from the Mundaka Upanishad. Now, the Mundaka Upanishad we normally tend to bypass in a sense because Mundaka means to shave off. In other words, it's generally seen, oh, this Upanishad is for monastic life. There's nothing to do with householders. But that would not be entirely true because all systems require renunciation. Then we have to understand what does renunciation means. So, the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita deals with the subject of sannyas and tyaga, begins with a question. That is, both mean a kind of renunciation. And what is the difference between these two is a question asked by Arjuna. Now, neither Arjuna nor Krishna think that sannyas, as it is used, is in any way anything to do with monasticism. In fact, sannyas is defined earlier in the Bhagavad Gita as somebody who is immune, as it were, from the pairs of opposites, has an equilibrium of mind whereby is not swayed by any extremes, either side, by hot or cold, good or bad, plus or minus, constantly steady in all circumstances. In other words, somebody who has renounced this ego that can easily be swayed. And one characteristic of leadership would be, in a way, you might think the opposite of what is understood. The absence of ego, the absence of a self-centered orientation. Because it is self-centeredness, really, that spoils the leadership. Leadership is about doing things for the good of everyone, leading people to a better thing. That would be leadership in the Vedantic sense. So this is sannyas. So it's not directly associated with monasticism. And tyaga really would be associated with giving up the effects or the fruits of one's activities. In other words, it's a contrast between jnana yoga, otherwise in Bhagavad Gita called Sankhya, and karma yoga. And karma yoga can be a system with a certain sweetness added to it. What we might call karma bhakti. Whatever action we're doing it in order to make it an offering to the source of that life-giving entity and the source of all of the resources that you are using. The problem is we think that we are doing everything, and when something goes wrong, we alone have to make the correction. But closer analysis will tell us that we are not personally digesting our food. We are not personally introducing the current that is available for thinking. We are not personally responsible for the availability of resources of food, even though we may have a farm, for example, and the farmer may well sow a crop and so on. Still, you have to answer the question, where is the crop coming from? Where's the earth itself coming from? Before the earth existed, what was there? Well, we can imagine some eternal being be there that weaves a cocoon, as it were, around itself and makes the earth. Something like that. And becomes then an inner controller. That is the expression. The inner controller. This is contained in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad repeatedly. He is the inner controller. The eyes don't know him, but he sits within the eyes, etc. The earth doesn't know him. No object knows him because he's the source and produces everything. And we know that where we come from, as it were, we are being sustained by that same principle and going back to it. This is the Taittiriya Upanishad also. So, to rally around these feelings, we would have to take a path of renunciation that willingly, lovingly offers back what is rightfully not ours, but belongs to our most beloved, who is interested enough in us to sustain our life and provide us with all the resources in the first place. Because he has a plan for us, not a bad investor. And that entity also produces everything from itself, so everywhere we look, we'll catch it. So to catch the glories, now we were recently on a retreat, and this was emphasized on this retreat, where we cannot catch the abstract absolute, but we can catch the glories. And we do that by looking everywhere we'll find it, because the whole of existence is manifested from these glories. And the Mundaka Upanishad tells us like that. It says, the Purusha, that is, that person, that is everything. We can imagine the microcosm to be something like the inflated microcosm. In other words, what we have here as a person, we extrapolate to the universe. This is the principle of general relativity. Our reality here is relatively real, relative to the organs of perception, and we can extrapolate that logically to say, if we want some consistency, then we'll see that the laws of nature operate everywhere and are consistent and constant. So what we look at in any version of the universe that we can see or find, we will see that there is a body. We call this the material universe. We see that there is an energy. We call this the material universe that is now actually energy. This is Einstein's equation, E equals m, that energy is actually equivalent to matter, or the mass of matter. What makes things heavy, in other words, is pure energy, potentially sitting there, which unleashed will be able to explode things like an atom bomb. So this Purusha, this person, that is the entire existence and beyond it, it says, is all this, or what? The whole universe. It is also karma, all activities, and the law of cause and effect, or sowing and reaping on a personal level. The Purusha is all austerities. In other words, the highest movement of will is contained in it. And the reason why we are doing any form of self-control or spiritual discipline is in order to discover this. So the origin comes from this Purusha. And it is above all of that. It is the absolute. It is the highest immortal. Now we may say that some theologies will take us to a post-mortem condition of heaven. And when we go there, then there's a relative immortality present. And if we take all the effulgent beings, they're not self-effulgent. These are described as illuminating factors, otherwise called devas, personalized as gods. These seem to have immortality. But of all these immortals, this being is the highest of the immortals. In other words, he's truly immortal, not just relatively so. And the one who knows this, eventually this is told, this one, hidden, Guhayam, hidden deep within the cave of the heart, rends asunder all knots of ignorance. Now we are suffering from a kind of slavery, even though we are under the illusion that we are free. And if we were free, then we would not even try to struggle for freedom, and yet it's a very fundamental thing. So we want to be free, we don't want to be constrained, we don't want to be enslaved. We want to conduct our life in a masterly way and have leadership of our own life. So if we want to cut away all the things that are keeping us in a restricted way, giving us a variety of feelings that we feel we have to defend and struggle against, if we want to cut asunder all these knots of what? We're suffering from forgetfulness, ignorance. Ignorance meaning the misunderstanding, the misapprehension that we ourselves are immortal in a physical sense, in an egoistic sense, in an individual sense, and it is not true. So we have to transcend the profit active complex which we have here, and that is our key enslaving thing. And if we understand that this Purusha, which is the whole of the universe, the whole of anything that moves, everything that has activity, if we understand that Purusha is all the austerities, all the means to discover it, and above all of that, and not only tapasya, but that mechanism which makes this world run, and even beyond that, but the absolute itself, away from the relative, then if we know this, that it is not just out there wouldn't make any sense, but it is hidden. That is why we can't hear it or understand it, and we get access to it through meditation. But all the spiritual activity has to lead to that point that we call meditation. It's very clear. Meditation in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the whole treatise on meditation, gives us an eightfold path, Ashtanga, and meditation only comes number 7 on the list. So in order to get to that point, because it's a progressive list, then what we have to do is we have to make a severe preparation, yam, niyam. We have to undergo moral discipline, moral training. In other words, we have to shift our way of looking at things and shift our valuation of things in such a way that our behavior toward the world also changes. And that behavior settles down through repetition on the habit level. And once we're there, once we've cleared and cleaned the mind, then this revelation of who we are is discovered in the dark cave, if you like, of the heart, hidden deep. It's not obviously there. We have to discover it, we have to explore it through the inner workings, the inner exploration, the inner guidance, the inner journey, which we call meditation. And look at it also, if it's hidden in us, it's hidden everywhere else also. But the evidence is there. The sun shines. The law of gravity operates. Electrical energy is behind everything that we see. The basic atom in the universe, the hydrogen, is essentially electrical and is subject to falling. In other words, gravity and electrical energy. Why? Where does it come from? It is all manifested very, very clearly. When we understand that, of course, a feeling of thankfulness comes. That's a feeling. That's emotion. Thankfulness is not just a thank you card sent to somebody. Thankfulness is a deep-rooted feeling of deep appreciation, deep love, deep reciprocity in the face of a free-flowing grace. And we love God because God is lovable, therefore. Nobody else gives us such a free gift without us having to pay tax or something. There's no agenda. And so this is God. That is why all religions will state God is love. But God has love. God is love. God loves us. Yes, we may say that. What is the evidence? Well, He keeps the drumbeat of the heart going. He keeps the movement of the lungs inflating and deflating. If you ever want evidence of this and a feeling of thankfulness, then put your thumb on your pulse and ask yourself a question, where is it coming from? And if you say the physical heart, the next thing is, what is pumping the physical heart and why? It's because the why indicates a purpose. So let us live our purpose out. And when we live our purpose out fully, with great conviction, with great decisiveness, we become leaders, surely. Isn't that true? So this Purusha is all of this, without any exceptions. And you see the preceding stanza will come like this. From him, from that being, come the oceans and the mountains. Oceans and mountains. Where do we go for respite? Where do people go on holiday? They go to the mountains or they go to the oceans, the sea. From him rivers flow. Where do people go on holiday? They go by rivers. Where do people find ancient civilizations? It's along the ancient riverbanks. He says every form and shape. And from him, from that one, come all herbs, all things that maintain your health, and things that are good for us, and things that we eat, and juices, and in him stand established all beings and the inner self. So the wonderful, wonderful few stanzas, and that is in the second part of the Mundaka Upanishad. Atas mutra girayascha sarve asmat. That's the passage. It goes like that. In order to be a leader, I think we require a little bit of a revolutionary spirit as well. If you study Napoleon or any person who had some kind of genius in their field, there would be people who would look at things in a different way and deliberately try to do that, because it is only through creativity and unusual thinking that we will make any new, fresh discoveries. It's possibly one of the reasons why in modern physics we really haven't discovered anything over the last at least 50 years and odd. And if you say, what about the Higgs boson and so on? Well, I'm not sure what good that does, what the merit of such a discovery was, except to add another kind of component to a kind of clumsy model. But it requires original thinking. And again, one of the reasons why we have these question and answer sessions is for two reasons. On a Wednesday, of course, it's to see, is there something in my own spiritual life that I feel needs addressing, that will be helpful to me, useful to me. And then the second question and answer session, normally on a Sunday, will really be to clarify certain positions, and every position will come with the registration of a problem or a difficulty or an obstacle, and will require a practical formula around it. And Vedanta issues both. It supplies us with a number of useful tools to get around all the things that are in our life that we register in a negative way, such as obstacle or challenge or any of these things. No, these are there. They're supposed to be there. And we are supposed to play the game of learning how to get around it in such a way that we can rally all our resources. We are essentially emotional beings as human beings. You can test it out for yourself. When you react in some way or another, then see what quantity, if you will, if you were to quantify it, of emotion went into that. You'll find it's quite a bit. Every reaction is more or less like that, an accompanying kind of batch, if you will, of emotion of one kind or the other. So we have to transform things. We have to transform swords into plowshares. We have to transform all the environmental growth material which is not present, and transform it into something beautiful and sweet smelling. A flower knows how to do it. Seeds may sit in compost, and the compost contains some useful things, even though it may not smell so well. But the flower doesn't worry about it. It's not interested in the unpleasant things. It's interested in the things it can extract to make it grow and culminate in a beautiful flower that has the generosity to share its scent everywhere and share its beauty everywhere also. So these are some thoughts on these questions. And I don't know if I satisfied the answer to these questions, but if not, let me know and we'll pursue it further. Otherwise, we can take fresh questions also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji, maybe a little bit on just, I'm afraid even to say this, but direction in the meditation process, just a little recap would be helpful.
Okay, wow, all right. You missed our course on meditation. All right. Meditation doesn't begin with sitting. I'll do it in points, that might be useful. Meditation does not begin with sitting. It begins with how we value the things in our waking life. It depends on revising how we see things. Instead of seeing things against us or seeing things that we have to react to, we only see the divine because that's the truth of what is there. That's the principle. When we see it and value it properly, we can rally the emotions around also. That means then that when we do sit for formal meditation, well, this is all informal meditation. Seeing God in everything is meditation with eyes open. That we have to practice. Then when we come down to so-called formal meditation where we sit, then the disturbances are minimized because we've dealt with any difficulty in situ. We haven't brought it to the meditation stage. Then we normally require a good deal of preparation in the beginning. If the mind doesn't easily move inward, as it were, and take up a subject for meditation, then we have to artificially induce it. What does that mean? Well, on the meditation workshop, I give people 18 mood cultivators. And these can range from selecting an appropriate environment, make sure it is clean, make sure that it is decorated. And the first steps in the Raja Yoga, Vivekananda's wonderful book on meditation, and in that book you'll find everything there is to know about meditation, by the way. So there, first steps, he puts out that, and that's extremely useful. So he says there that we should make sure that we have a room dedicated to the practice, or at least a corner of the room, or if you can't afford that, then do that anywhere. But there has to be something where we sit down and our space is immediately sacred. This is the source of the sanctity of churches, temples, and places like that, where we immediately go in and absorb the spiritual environment, and immediately it induces a sense of prayerfulness in us. Then, having done a little ritual, we could light a lamp, for example, or an incense stick. Make sure that we are seated properly. These are some of the items in the first steps, recommendations. We start off by wishing everybody well. That is the whole universe. And Swami Vivekananda puts it as a prayer. Let all beings, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be blissful. This can be accompanied by a great deal of creative imagination, which in itself could be a meditation. And when we say may all beings, we are saying all beings, which is an all-inclusive formula. It means you as well. And then we make sure that our seat is comfortable, physically comfortable. And we have to make sure that there is an exercise in awareness. Now, for most people, in dualistic, theistic meditation, which is equivalent to practicing the divine presence as we sit. That's important to feel this divine presence. It's not an enforced thing. It's a natural thing. We can use a little imagination also. Imagination is the whole key in meditation. But really, a little reflection will tell us that we are sitting by divine grace. There is no other thing that is happening there. Divine grace is flowing, and it flows also as thought. Whatever thought is coming in to our mental field is actually grace coming through, flowing through as thought. We don't have to look for divine grace in meditation. It's already flowing as the thought current. It's just that we have to take that thought current and channel it here and channel it there. Lord, please come here, please go there. And so we can take our awareness around us and we can start removing all the things that seem to be impeding our use of attention. What do we mean by that? Well, some disturbances will be, number one, physical. Supposing you have some kind of disease. This is laid out in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. There are various difficulties. Disease will be one of them. That is why we try to keep ourselves healthy. We do it because we want to meditate. We do it because we want to sit and not be disturbed by an arthritic knee or something else. And then, of course, we make sure that the nerves are settled. So we can do maybe a little breathing. But if you have a practice of devotion, the breathing will take care of itself. To do it consciously will be an optional thing. So two aspects, all physical, are being dealt with. Now we have to look, see what is the more subtle mind doing. What thoughts are going in? And it's much good. We should resist ye not evil, says Jesus. We should see thoughts coming and going and accept them. And the thoughts will be all kinds of things until the mind quiets down a little bit. And then we're able to withdraw our awareness. We're able to withdraw everything, our awareness from the mental activity, and withdraw like a tortoise pulling its limbs away. This is a stage called pratyahara. This is now a transition stage between the physical and the psychological and the spiritual. Once we have attained this ultimate withdrawal, it's like wiping off material or letters or ink on a whiteboard. We clean it all off. We have a blank board there, and now we can start filling it creatively. We have to plan it. In other words, we have to know in advance. Well, sometimes something spontaneously comes from inspiration. But if you really want in the beginning stages to make a constructive meditation, what you'll do is you'll pick up a theme. You'll make an inner running commentary on it. Let us take, for example, a wonderful scene where you felt you're most elevated. This is the practical use of pilgrimages, that we have so many mental images and so many experiences that engage all the senses. For example, supposing you go to Varanasi, you can smell, what does the water smell like? You can probably smell all the incense that is being burnt. You can recall what happened in the evening time, how the arti went. You can recall going down the river nicely, chanting a mantra, and you can recall what a beautifully elevated scene this was. Now, in relating this, I'm actually describing my last visit to Varanasi with a group of pilgrims. And as soon as I describe that scene, they will immediately remember what went on there. And they will also remember it from their point of view, because everybody will recall a different experience. That's not the point. The point is, there it is in the oldest city in the world, the oldest extant habitable city in the world. It's very, walls and streets are sacred and have been considered sacred for many, many thousands of years. And there's the flowing Ganga and all the rest of it. These scenes will immediately elevate the mind effortlessly, and then we can allow things to glide across into the realm of things which are much more profound, and allow these scenes, for example, to lead us within. And just now, I gave you a stanza, that this is hidden in the cave of the heart. The whole universe, the source of it, the universe itself, is hidden in the cave of the heart. So we go into more and more subtle regions. And at this point, we are now listening to the instructions of our guru or our competent teacher. So this is how we would do it. And part and parcel of that will be the incorporation of japa. That is repeating a sacred mantra. And any aspirant should have implicit faith and belief in this mantra. They should surrender themselves fully to their chosen ideal, fully. That means that we sit down and we see, what are we not surrendering? And we give it all away. As soon as we let go and give it all away, divine grace, the living chosen ideal, fills us up with fullness. And in filling us up with fullness, you will certainly feel something beyond human emotion. And tears may well flow. And really, any meditation where tears don't flow is really maybe not as intense and beautiful as it should be. These are not tears of sorrow. These are tears of ecstatic joy. Tears that where you feel overwhelmed. These are nothing to do with despondency or depression. These are not dark tears. And so you should follow the instructions given by your preceptor at the time of initiation, mantra diksha. And most people, everybody actually, should take this mantra diksha. That will give specific guidance. But however, maybe if the preceptor hasn't given any special instruction, then there are some general rules that can be followed in terms of this japa, which is very, very important. When we talk about meditation, we really are talking about prayer. Prayer means expressing the feeling that you have already and listening to the corresponding voice of the divine within you. That's really what prayer is. It's not asking, it's not begging, nothing like that. Not at its deepest, most spiritual level. So this belief that you can attain God realization just through repetition of the mantra. I think I may have said, at the meditation, at the retreat that we recently did, that japa is the means for this day and age. Why? Because it doesn't require special training. And all you have to do is lovingly repeat God's name and have non-demanding love for your chosen ideal, and understand that your mantra itself is the sound embodiment of your chosen ideal. And that use of this japa will immediately open the mind up to a meditative state. So this mantra diksha should be taken really as a very sacred ritual. It shouldn't be taken lightly. And whoever you are shouldn't get themselves initiated just to imitate somebody, or because somebody said you should do it, or anything like this. And people should approach a guru, a teacher, with an unwavering mind, with firm determination also, complete faith in the efficacy of the mantra japa that has been given. It's a very, very important part of this meditation process. It's a means for God realization, an easy means, one that is suitable for this day and age, Kali Yuga, if you want to call it like that. then of course you will not be able to meditate if you have these old friends, uncontrolled visitors, namely things like passion, anger, greed, envy, jealousy. We can go on and on. You have to cultivate the divine qualities, selfless service, renunciation, which we mentioned, charity, love, forgiveness, humility. All of these things have to be cultivated. And the scriptures are full of these various qualities that are available for us to cultivate. So in purifying the mind in our normal daily activities, we are setting the scene for profound meditation. And meditation is this direct discovery. It is using the light of the mind to view consciousness and acts as a kind of link, because from the mind's point of view, consciousness is consciousness of what is the mind doing, and consciousness of the observing entity which is sitting there, which is pure consciousness itself. And meditation really then comes when the meditator, the process of meditation, and the goal or object of meditation all merge into one thing. And at that point, that really is meditation. Meditation, when one thought alone is there in the mind, this is meditation. We call everything meditation, no doubt, but actually the most of our meditation practice will be preparation. Right at the last moment, it'll be this feeling of oneness, where the Ishtadevata is almost dissolved in its form and yields to the formless consciousness itself. And we now get this profound feeling that is described with the Mahamantras, such as the Mahavakyas, I should say, such as Tattvamasi, Ahamasmi, I am that. That is the reality. Brahman is that. Consciousness is that. All of these Mahavakyas are there. These are points of realization. They're not intellectual sayings. Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, etc. All of those kinds of things. And they are feelings. There's a profound feeling of oneness. When no thought is there in the mind at all, we call this samadhi. I wouldn't worry about that. The practice of the first will yield to that. An intermediate state will be there. Savikalpa samadhi can be there, where there's still this separation feeling. But you see, there has to be a systematic process. Most people say, give me samadhi. They want to jump there because I don't see why you can't get that. Since we have instant coffee, we should have instant samadhi. Makes sense? No, it doesn't. It's like saying, let me instantly get to the top of a mountain without making a trek, starting from the bottom upwards. We all have to take this journey. I hope that answers your question.
Very much so. Thank you, Swamiji.
All right. Well, I think we've gone past our 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock, I should say. We've gone to 1 hour, 7 o'clock to 8. So, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.